So, in this video, I want to talk about something called the thin line moment. And the thin line moment is the critical point where a query can move into a complaint. If you stay above the line, then it will stay as a query. If you fall below the line, it will be a complaint. And the majority of complaints are preventable. You could argue all are preventable if we live in the Holy Grail world. But realistically, there is a good bunch of 90% of complaints that you can prevent because they are queries. They are queries that have come into your organization. They often are maybe a second or third contact, potentially across a number of different channels. And there'll be a moment in the journey, which is called the thin line moment, where depending on how you handle the query, it will really change the course. If you handle it well and you listen, you reassure, you really bring confidence to the customer that you're on it and you resolve, it will stay a query and be resolved. However, if there's a missing link, if you're not listening properly, if you can't resolve it, if you're not giving confidence to the customer that you're on it, it will move into a complaint. And these are so preventable. I really do believe 90% plus are preventable if you have the right foundations and you have the right tools within your organization. So there are three things that will help you stay above the line. The first one is listening. And I know this sounds basic and I know this is not breaking news, but you can never do too much listening. The amount of times the teams will hear a couple of words from the customer, then go into assuming, go into the solution, and maybe follow the process, and they've overlooked the fact that the customer needs to feel heard, needs to feel seen, and you need to make sure that you are listening. Customers will very, very rarely give you in one go a clear picture of what's happened. It really, really will need you to listen, to spot gaps, to maybe clarify some points. So you need to be asking a couple of questions. One, that proves that you're listening, that you're engaged and you're interested. And two, it means that you can really get to the bottom of what the actual problem is for the customer. So that's the first step, is make sure you listen and make sure the customer feels seen. Once you've done that, you need to reassure the customer. You need to reassure and prove to them that you've listened and that you have the tools, or you know what the next steps will be to help their query and to resolve their question or their pain or whatever they need. So you need to be using the right language, positive language. You need to be showing that you're going to take ownership and that you've got the tools to put it right. And then the third aspect to this is resolving, resolution. Resolution and knowledge are the two biggest drivers of customer satisfaction. So if you're looking to improve satisfaction, then they are the two areas to really double down on. And the third element is you need to resolve. And like I said, resolution is absolutely critical here. And the resolution needs to be what the customer obviously wants and needs. So it's all about making sure that you can get it over the line, you can resolve the query. And if you can't resolve the query, because sometimes they are a little bit complex or they need a little bit of investigation, it really is about making sure that you give them confidence on what the next steps are, what you're going to do, and what the communication will be to them, and the likely timescales, because most people are really reasonable people. Unless it's a very time-bound query, most people are fairly reasonable when they've got a timescale and they feel confident in you. And that's all it's about. It's about really making sure that there's confidence and there's belief that you're going to sort it. And as long as that happens, you will stay above the line. But if it doesn't happen, you will fall below the line and you'll enter the complaints world. And the complaints world is not good for anyone. For the customer, if they get into that place, they're going to be emotional. They're going to have a very bad story that they'll share with different people. I think there's research that says that customers will share a bad customer experience story to 11 people, to friends or colleagues at work, right? Everyone loves a bad customer experience story. So they'll be bad naming your brand and your organization. There's the cost angle as well. As soon as it goes into a complaint, it will be escalated, potentially be a different tier of team, potentially more costly. And that's just not good for business either. And then back to the customer, you potentially will lose that customer for life. So it's the lifetime value here that's really important. It's not just about the value of that transaction, it's the value of the customer across the lifetime. So that is it. That is the thin line moment. So hopefully it's a good framework to be able to, I suppose, frame what complaints are and how to prevent them. And I think the thin line moment is really good for teams to kind of have in mind, to really understand that their role is really critical, and often there are signs, very clear signs, right before a complaint happens, and it's up to the frontline teams to spot that and to put it right. And it's up for the leaders to make sure they build the right environment and the right tools and the right culture to enable teams to prevent complaints from happening.